Hello, I'm Jonasz Rawiński. Welcome on board the Eastern Express. And as always, I hope you enjoy the journey. In this episode of Eastern Express, we dive deep into the world of strategies, military maneuvers, and the everlasting issue of international aid in Eastern Europe. Picture this, spring 2024, a season of rebirth where the only thing blooming on the Eastern Front are the ambitions of Russian forces as they continue their offensive operations in Ukraine. But what is it? A glimmer of hope on the horizon, or just another high-stakes gamble in the great casino of international conflict? Let's take a look at our latest report to find out more.
While the Ukrainian front line might have remained mostly static in recent days, the skies above have seen a staggering number of missiles fly across. The Ukrainian city of Kherson has been targeted 6 times in the last 24 hours. While no casualties have been reported, civilian infrastructure has taken significant damage. Kharkiv also saw its fair share of airstrikes on Monday. A learning facility, including a library, were reduced to rubble by the most recent Russian bombardment. The city's mayor says the reconstruction of Kharkiv will cost around $10 billion. Russian forces have been steadily advancing towards Kharkiv over the last few months. Ukrainian intelligence says Moscow's next objective in the war is capturing the city. They say if Kharkiv falls, Kyiv will be next. While Ukrainian troops are able to go toe-to-toe with Russian soldiers on land, they are significantly outmatched in the air. Ukrainian officials, including President Volodymyr Zelensky and Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba, say that Russian drone strikes are the #1 reason behind Ukrainian forces losing positions. Both officials have been calling on Ukraine's Western allies to deliver the promised air defense systems to Kyiv. The US Congress is scheduled to return to its gridlocked vote on a new aid package to Ukraine after Easter recess ends on April 9.
And now, as always, it's time to delve into the issue in greater detail. The Institute for the Study of War reports a critical juncture in the Russo-Ukrainian war. As flowers dare to bloom amidst the churned air of conflict zones, the Western world's security assistance becomes not just a lifeline, but the very air Ukraine breathes in its struggle to repel Russian advances. Yet as Russian forces sharpen their focus on the Avdiivka direction, launching relentless mechanized and infantry assaults, the question looms, will the West's aid arrive in time to fortify Ukraine's defenses? The other option is that bureaucratic delays may serve a cold dish of vulnerabilities to Russian strategists on a silver platter, so this is definitely something to be avoided, especially from the Ukrainian perspective. Now, the ISW warns of a spring and summer of discontent as Russian forces dynamically re-weight their offensive efforts, seeking to exploit any crack in the Ukrainian defense lines. The battleground becomes not just a test of military might, but a proving ground for the resolve and speed of Western aid. Amidst a backdrop of relentless artillery and drone strikes, we witness the strategic significance of terrain as Ukrainian forces maintain control over key heights south of Bogdanivka. In this modern-day siege, the defenders of Bogdanivka utilize the high ground to their advantage, employing a blend of traditional bravery and cutting-edge technology. Drones, once the playthings of hobbyists, become the eyes in the sky, while the echo of artillery serves as a grim reminder of the stakes at play. The Ukrainians, facing assaults that seek to encircle and overwhelm, find strength in their strategic positioning and the solidarity of their ranks. Further south, near Chasiv Yar, the Russian forces attempt a tactical envelopment, only to be met with fierce resistance. Every vehicle lost, every advance halted speaks volumes of the Ukrainian resolve to defend their soil. Despite Russian efforts to encircle and penetrate Ukrainian defenses through infantry assaults and flanking maneuvers, the resilience of Ukrainian fighters shines through. Their ability to repel attacks, despite the overwhelming firepower, underscores the complexities of modern warfare. And now we're joined by our guest today, Michailo Samus, director of the New Geopolitics Research Network. Hello and welcome to Eastern Express.
Hello, thank you very much for inviting me.
So let's begin by debunking a few myths. Many pro-Russian accounts are suggesting on social media that Ukraine is completely losing the war, that it doesn't stand a chance. Now, this isn't completely true. So can you tell us, how does Ukraine actually manage to negate these narratives in practice?
Actually, yeah, after the destroying, not only, let's say, the occupying, but destroying Avdiivka, after several weeks of these tough battles, I would say that Ukrainian forces actually now they're staying on the new lines of defense, and it's very difficult for Russians to penetrate it, to break through these new lines of defense, especially that new commander-in-chief of Ukrainian armed forces pay attention especially to build a new strategic and operational line of defense, very good prepared, and especially on the Donbas. So actually, if we're talking about the strategic goal of Russians for 2024, it's a breakthrough on defense lines on Donbas and get as much as possible Ukrainian territories in Donetsk and Lugansk oblasts. And Ukrainian forces has absolutely opposite goal and opposite task to do not allow Russians to penetrate on Donbas and fix situation on Eastern Front and try to surprise Russians on Southern Front again, as Ukrainian forces tried in 2023. But of course, we hope that it will be a little bit different situation as we almost get F-16.
So now let's put things in perspective. The main challenge for Ukrainians is the lack of funding and the lack of ammunition. And these two are interconnected, really. And this all boils down to the mess that we've been seeing for a couple of months now at the US Congress. So moving from the battlefield into the corridors of power for just a moment, do you think that finally the House of Representatives will vote on the bill and will stop delaying it, thus paving the way for more aid to Ukraine and thereby opening an avenue for Ukrainians to counterattack?
Yeah, absolutely right. That the situation with United States support is a critical issue for Ukrainian capabilities and ability to achieve the 2024 goals. And actually, Russia, of course, trying to use it, trying to exploit the situation. And this situation could explain why Russians, after the huge operations, very huge level of losses during the, for example, assault operations on Avdiivka, they need to have some rest, and then they need actually to make some pause. But otherwise, they won't have any resources in the summer. But in the same time, Russians continue to trying to put some reserves and trying to continue attacks on Ukrainian front, because they think that because of the lack of United States and European support, Ukrainians simply don't have the proper number of ammunition, artillery, tanks, and especially aviation. So, of course, in Ukraine we understand the situation in the United States Congress because of the elections process. The Republicans trying to use all of possibility to make some problems for Biden, and they think that Biden will lose if Ukraine will lose, and it's not so simple. But I could explain it like this. Finally, I think that in April, Congress and of course the Speaker of Republicans he will try to solve this problem. It's actually started to become a personal problems for Johnson, and I hope that in April Ukraine will have this final decision for United States return to support with let's say critical instruments like F-16, a weapon for F-16, the long-range missiles, something like ATACMS and other instruments will allow Ukrainians hope for breakthrough Southern Front in summer.
So we've established that even though the resources of the Ukrainian army could be at a nadir right now, right? Because later on, the supplies from the European Union will begin to arrive, followed, hopefully, as we've indicated, by those from the United States. So this should seem like the perfect moment for Russia to attack, but they are not really making any breakthroughs. Instead, however, they are focusing on terrorist attacks. They are destroying infrastructure, they are attacking peaceful cities and killing civilians. So what does it tell us about the condition of the Russian military? But also, what does it tell us about the challenges that Ukraine may be facing in the near future? Because there is a serious risk that Russia may want to cripple the Ukrainian energy system, thus plunging the nation into darkness and putting it to the test, right? The Ukrainian resilience has been tremendous, but this could be a very, very difficult time for the entire country.
Yeah, absolutely right. But I think this situation with missiles attacks against Ukrainian energy infrastructure is connected to the same issue, lack of United States support, because Russians think that without United States support, Ukraine won't get enough missiles for Patriots. And Patriots actually is the instrument who could stop Russian hypersonic missiles or ballistic missiles. Only Patriots now could be covered for Ukrainian energy system. That's why Russians trying to use this gap before United States will support a new package for military aid for Ukraine, of course, including Patriot missiles. So this belongs to this understanding of Russians that the chance for a couple months before United States approve this and confirm this support to Ukraine, to use this period to destroy as much as possible Ukrainian energy and all of critical infrastructure for Ukrainian, which is very important. So I hope that as we get in more and more support from Europe. Again, unfortunately, we have unique support from United States, for example, like weapon for F-16 or missiles for Patriots. Even some European countries trying to get away on support to Ukraine on the Patriots, but actually majority of this belongs to United States. So unfortunately, before United States make a decision on final 2024 aid package for military aid package for Ukraine, we cannot say that we for sure will have very, very good situation with our infrastructure. Unfortunately, before it, I would say that it's a huge danger that Russians could have some success on this.
So there is also a danger that Russia may try to attack major cities, including Kharkiv, which is the second biggest city in all of Ukraine. And this brings me to the next question. When do you think countries such as France, countries such as the Baltic states, countries that have indicated that at some point boots on the ground, NATO boots on the ground is not really out of the question. It really is an option that could appear on the table in the future. Do you think that, for example, a Russian attack against Kharkiv, Russian forces moving in full force, full strength, and a risk of genocide, do you think that this could trigger a response from NATO countries? Essentially, they, looking at the situation and saying, look, this is too much. We cannot allow this to happen. This is a humanitarian intervention. There are millions of civilian lives at stake. And it's up to Putin what he's going to do now. Is he going to back down? Or is he going to try and push into a confrontation with NATO right now?
Fortunately, we don't have a direct dangers for Russian attacks. I mean, the NU operation for occupation Kharkiv. Now it's actually the missiles and even aviation attacks on Kharkiv. It's only 20 kilometers from Russian border, so they can use any MLRS, artillery, aviation, and etc. to destroy Kharkiv and Kharkiv infrastructure. Actually, now they destroyed almost all of possible energy and critical including transport infrastructure in Kharkiv. Unfortunately, it's more than 1 million population city now. It's in a very difficult situation. But at the same time, we cannot say that Russia is ready to attack this city directly because they simply don't have the proper number of troops. They concentrate in the military attack or the operations on Donbass. But
of course, hopefully it will never have the opportunity to do that. But even the fact that they are manufacturing these FAB 1500 and 3000 bombs, I mean, these are huge aerial bombs, and they have extended the range. Dropping this in a populated area would result in carnage. So would you say that if it comes to this, if Russia really begins simply, razing the city to the ground, using tactics that it has used in Syria, would this trigger a more proactive response from NATO?
Yeah, do not allow to make it like in Syria. It's very simple. It's simple solution. It's F-16 and more Patriots. It's solve all of problems because we just push out Russian aviation, and actually, if we have a long range missiles, again, it will solve all of these problems. So we don't need to actually put the troops on the attack of Russian aviation. We should use our aviation to push out Russian aviation. So it's not so direct connected to solutions and decisions by European Union to put European troops on Ukrainian soil. But in the same time, I think it mostly depends on the feelings of, or soul feelings of Europeans, how to determine the so-called strategic autonomy and strategic autonomy in decisions, how to use the troops, how to support Ukraine, and how to feel actually what does it mean European security. If Ukraine including in European security, of course, European countries should participate in this war against Russia. If we still have some, the divisions between Ukraine and European Union and NATO, which is actually naturally before NATO has this Article 5 and Ukraine out of the NATO. So we should divide the Ukrainian security and European security. It means that in this case, Europeans should care about European itself. I mean that not beyond Ukrainian border. Anyway, it could be some situations when France and other countries could decide to participate in some military operations in Ukraine. Maybe when it will be some de-escalation of the war, but escalation of the situation inside of Russia, because it's some of the probable scenario that Russia will be very unstable in some years. And of course, European countries should support Ukrainian capability to stop some terroristic or other threats from Russian territory flowing to Europe through Ukraine, for example, or other countries. So I'm not sure that it should be directly this time for European countries to participate in military operations against Russia with Ukraine, but maybe later, after the situation will change, European countries should think about it if we're talking about the strategic autonomy and actually about European security.
And strategic ambiguity. Russia cannot be sure of our every move. It is time for us to make this whole situation less predictable for Putin, deterring him from taking further actions. Mikhail Samus was our guest today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your insight into the subject. And now we're moving on to Eastern News Flash, bringing you a curated selection of all the other stories from the East that you really don't want to miss. Ukrainian military intelligence says Russia is preparing for an open confrontation with the United States, Europe and NATO. This follows a massive surge of new army recruits following the latest draft in Russia.
According to Russian state-owned news agency TASS, around 150,000 soldiers are expected to enter service between April 1st and July 15th of this year. General Vadim Skibitsky, deputy chief of Ukraine's military intelligence, says Moscow's plans for the war in Ukraine remain the same, to fully occupy the Luhansk and Donetsk regions. According to Ukrainian intelligence services, following Putin's victory in the recent presidential elections, Russia is preparing for confrontations with the Western world on all levels, starting with official statements and possibly ending in an all-out war. Western officials, including NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, have expressed concerns that the war in Ukraine could lead to a potentially decades-long confrontation between Russia and NATO. This coincides with theories entertained by military personnel across the broader West that Moscow is trying to recapture its once-lost borders. Kyiv says that if Ukraine falls, Russia will set its sights on Kazakhstan, Poland, the Baltic states, and even Germany.
Members of Germany's far-right party AfD have been accused of receiving illicit funds from a pro-Putin network, tasked with spreading Russia's influence across Europe. The claims were made by German and Czech media outlets following a probe into the network's operations.
Two people named so far are Maximilian Krach and Petr Bistron, leaders of AfD's campaign for the upcoming European Parliament elections in June of this year. Both politicians were reportedly paid off by a Kremlin sympathizer to promote Moscow's narratives through interviews with a pro-Russian news platform, Voice of Europe. The accused have dismissed these claims. The person who reportedly funded AfD's frontrunners is Viktor Medvedchuk, a former Ukrainian politician who has close ties to Russian President Vladimir Putin. The latter is the godfather of Medvedchuk's daughter. In May 2021, Viktor Medvedchuk was placed under house arrest by Ukraine's National Defense and Security Council on charges of treason, aiding terrorism and illegal activities carried out in Crimea. In September of 2022, he was exchanged for 200 Ukrainian prisoners captured by Russia. Medvedchuk's network is also said to have funneled cash to politicians from 6 EU countries: Germany, France, Poland, Belgium, the Netherlands and Hungary. Investigators say he and his platform covertly financed European political candidates deemed favorable to Moscow's interests.
US House Speaker Mike Johnson has said he's planning to put a new Ukraine aid bill to a vote. The legislation is said to contain adjustments and amendments that would make it more favorable in the eyes of some House representatives.
The vote is scheduled to take place after the Easter recess, which ends on April 9th. House Speaker Johnson did not specify what amendments will be made to the bill or how much aid would be given to Ukraine. After the US Senate has recently passed a bill that would see upwards of $60 billion worth of aid to Ukraine, the legislation was blocked in the House by none other than Mike Johnson himself, saying decisions like these should not be rushed. If the House of Representatives chooses to pass its own version of the bill instead of the previous one, the Senate's approval would be needed once more. This would further delay the delivery of this crucial aid package to Ukraine. The promised aid is crucial for Ukraine to bolster its air defenses. Their poor condition is the biggest reason behind Kyiv's forces losing positions over the last few months.
End of the line for this episode of Eastern Express, but please don't go away. We've got a lot more in store for you here on TDP World. For the time being, I'm Jan Thank you for watching.